The Missouri Tigers have been underrated the last couple of years, and Elijah Drinkwitz has done a really good job. Mizzou has won over 10 games the past 2 seasons, and going into 2025, they're once again getting a lot of hype. As a Mizzou fan myself, I'm not sure if they're going to win 10 games again, but today I want to do my preview on the Tigers. We're going to go through their roster, talk about last season, their depth chart, who they brought in and who they lost, and I'm going to give my game-by-game prediction for them. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's go ahead and get started and preview the 2025 Missouri Tigers. So going into last year, they were obviously fresh off of a really good 2023 season in which they won the Cotton Bowl over Ohio State. The Tigers started out ranked number 11 in the nation and killed Murray State 51-0. It was the same story in week 2 as they beat Buffalo 38-0. Yeah, they played against some pretty bad teams, but then number 24 Boston College would come to town. This game was a little bit of a scare for Tigers fans, as while they were down, they ended up coming back in the second half and won 27-21. This still didn't make many Mizzou fans feel very comfortable. Week 4 was even worse, as against Vanderbilt, the Commodores came on the road led by Diego Pavia, and the game ended up going to double overtime, where Mizzou eventually won 30-27. This was a total scare, as many thought Vandy was not very good, but as we found out, they ended up beating Bama and were actually pretty solid, so it really wasn't that bad in retrospect, but at the time, everybody was panicking. They then would travel on the road to play against number 25 Texas A&M on the first week of October, and this game was terrible. It was over from the very first snap, and Mizzou lost 41-10. They would have to really regroup after this, and luckily they had an easy game, as they'd go on the road to play against UMass. They'd win that matchup 45-3, and the Tigers were 5-1 through the first stretch of the year. Against Auburn, Mizzou was also in big trouble, as Brady Cook ended up getting hurt, went to the hospital, and came back, and led them to a 21-17 victory. Mizzou was honestly walking on eggshells at this point, and it was just a matter of time before it fell apart again. Against number 15 Alabama on the road, it finally all happened. Drew Pine ended up throwing 3 interceptions, and Mizzou lost 34-0 on the road in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and this was terrible. Personally, I thought the season was going to fall apart after that, but then Drew Pine came out of nowhere and led them to a crazy victory against Oklahoma. There was 4 touchdowns in the last 3 minutes of the game, and Mizzou won by way of a late strip sack scoop and score. Mizzou won 30-23, and technically their playoff hopes were still alive. They then would travel on the road to number 21 South Carolina, who was one of the hottest teams in college football, and after taking a late lead, they'd ultimately give up a touchdown at the end and lost 34-30, and now they had 3 losses, and they definitely were not going to the college football playoff. To finish out the year, they would play against both Mississippi State and Arkansas, with the first game being in Starkville. They ended up winning that game 39-20, and it was never really close, and the Arkansas game was also pretty fun, and they would win the Battle Line rivalry 28-21. Mizzou would end up going 9-3 in the regular season, and would qualify to play in the Music City Bowl against Iowa. This game was also a thriller, as they ended up winning 27-24. If you can't tell, Mizzou got by in a lot of close games last year, and luck was honestly really on their side. The team ended up going 10-3 with a 5-3 mark in the SEC. As I said, there was plenty of luck in the other games. The Tigers were led by their quarterback Brady Cook, who threw for 2,500 yards with 11 touchdowns and 2 picks, but he was on and off hurt. In terms of the running back, they had 2 guys in both Nate Noel and Marcus Carroll, as Noel had 800 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Marcus Carroll ran for nearly 600 yards and 12 scores. Jamal Roberts also got on the field a bit, and Brady Cook used his legs. In the receiving game, Theo Weiss Jr. led the way with 60 catches for 884 yards and 4 touchdowns, and star player Luther Burden III was somewhat held in check, as he only had 61 catches for 676 yards and 6 touchdowns. Something was a little bit off with the offense, to be honest. Marquise Johnson was also solid, but tight end Brett Norfleet became one of the best in the SEC, and then Mookie Cooper, Josh Manning, and Daniel Blood also got opportunities to get on the field last year. In terms of the defense, Corey Flagg Jr. led the way with 81 total tackles, Johnny Walker Jr. led the way with 9.5 sacks, Dalen Carnell ended up having 6 pass deflections, and then both Dre Norwood and Toriano Pride each had 2 interceptions apiece. It ended up being a good year for the Tigers, and they had a couple of guys get drafted pretty high. It didn't take long for a Tiger to hear his name called, as with pick number 7, the New York Jets selected offensive tackle Armand Membo, and then in round 2, the Chicago Bears would draft Luther Burden III. To close out the draft, offensive tackle Marcus Bryant ended up getting drafted in the 7th round by the Patriots, and then both Johnny Walker and Theo Weiss went undrafted, unfortunately. It's hard to complain about having 2 picks in the first 2 rounds, but the Tigers did lose a lot of key pieces and are really hoping to rebuild through the transfer portal. In terms of recruiting, Mizzou's 2025 class ranked number 14 in the nation, as it was headlined by Javion Hilson, Matt Zollers, Jack Lange, and Dayton Hopkins. All those guys should get an opportunity to see the field, and their transfer portal class ranked number 7 in the country. They ended up getting 22 transfers overall, as they got Braylon Henderson, a defensive lineman from Ohio, Jalen Early, an offensive tackle from Florida State, Xavier Lloyd, a receiver from Illinois State, Gavin Hoffman, a tight end from Iowa, Jack Powers, an offensive lineman from Cornell, former 5-star Damon Wilson II from Georgia, Vince Brown, a tight end from Colorado State, Jalen Catalon, a safety from UNLV, Stephen Hall, a corner from Wazoo, Johnny Williams IV from West Virginia, Bo Prabula from Penn State, Nate Johnson, an edge rusher from App State, Keegan Trost from Wake Forest, Mose Phillips III from Virginia Tech, Ahmad Hardy from UL Monroe, Langdon Kitchen from Northwest Missouri State, Mekhi Gabayer, a linebacker from Nebraska, Josiah Trotter from West Virginia, Santana Banner from Northern Illinois, and Kevin Coleman Jr. from Mississippi State. There were a lot of names there, and sorry if that ended up boring you, but in particular, there are 3 guys who are super important for them. The first one is Kevin Coleman Jr., who was a former 5-star recruit at one point and will slot in as the number 1 receiver for them. They also lost their top 2 running backs, so true sophomore Ahmad Hardy from UL Monroe will be expected to carry the load. Bo Prabula is also their big-time transfer quarterback from Penn State, and while he hasn't won the job yet, he should end up coming out in first. They ended up getting a lot of depth pieces, and it seems that Mizzou is really building through the portal. In terms of the 2025 depth chart, Mizzou has a couple of guys at the quarterback position, which include transfer Bo Prabula from Penn State, Sam Horn, the former big-time recruit in the class of 2022, and true freshman Matt Zollers, who is a high 4-star. Right now there is still a quarterback battle going on between Bo and Sam, but most insiders believe that it's Bo's job to lose, and he has a 75% chance of winning it. After that, you go over to the running back position, and Ahmad Hardy is going to be the starter. As I said, he was incredible as a true freshman for UL Monroe, and he's going to be the guy to beat. Behind that, you have the steady guy in Jamal Roberts, then you'll have Marquise Davis, who's a freshman, and former blue chip recruit from a couple of years ago, Tavoris Jones. At the wide receiver spot, they ended up losing 3 of their top 4 guys, so they'll need some players to step up. Luckily, they got Kevin Coleman Jr. from Mississippi State. You have one of the fastest receivers in the nation in Marquise Johnson, and then former blue chip recruit Joshua Manning will also be a starter. In terms of guys behind him, you'll have Daniel Blood, who got on the field a little bit last year, James Madison, and then guys like Xavier Lloyd, Sean Terry, and Demarion Folks. Mizzou returns one of the top tight ends in the country in Brett Norfleet Jr. Then they have a monster of a player in Jordan Harris behind him, and the grad transfer in Vince Brown. Overall, I really like Mizzou. As Elijah Drinkwitz said, this is the team with the most depth that he's ever had, but obviously Mizzou needs their pieces to all come together and mesh. You have a new quarterback, new running back, new receivers, and a couple of new guys on the defensive line, so you just kind of have to hope that things work out. Luckily, they bring back both of their coordinators from last year, so there should be some good continuation. In terms of their schedule, they'll start out with a Week 1 game against Central Arkansas. This game should not be close, and if it is, that spells huge trouble for Mizzou. They'll win that game pretty easily before facing off with Kansas in the Border War game. This Mizzou KU football game has not been played in a long time, and it's going to be pretty highly anticipated. I wish I could go to it, but I'm not going to be able to. And I see no reason why Mizzou doesn't win this one. Sure, Jalen Daniels has been around for quite some time, and Lance Leipold is a tough coach, but they lost their best player in a long time in Devin Neal, and this game's at home, and I think Mizzou was better. They now get to 2-0. From there, they'll play against Louisiana, who used to be one of the top group of 5 programs in the nation, but I think this game should be a pretty easy win for them, and they'll end up getting to 3-0. They then will face off with South Carolina, who's one of the more hyped up teams in the SEC this year. They return, in my opinion, the most electric quarterback in the conference in Lenoris Sellers, and Shane Beamer has them rolling. Last year, South Carolina won, and I know Mizzou fans are going to disagree with me, but in my Carolina preview, I picked the Gamecocks to win this game in a close one. I'm not quite sure if Mizzou will have everything meshed out by then, and I think South Carolina does win in a close one in the Columbia Cup, but I could also see it go Mizzou's way. Regardless, it's going to be 4-1 for me. From there, they will play against UMass, who they seem to play every year now, and this game will be over before halftime, 4-1. After that, they come back home to play against the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I cannot remember the last time Mizzou beat them. They played them at home back in 2020 to start out that weird 2020 season. Last year, they got killed. I think this game wound up being close, and I think they split the South Carolina and Alabama games, and I'm actually going to pick Mizzou to win this one. I know Bama fans won't agree with that, but Bama has to reload. They showed they were beatable last year, and I don't think Ty Simpson is really all that good yet. Mizzou goes 5-1 in their first 6 games, with wins over Bama and Kansas, and a loss to South Carolina. To finish out the year, they will then go on the road and play against Auburn, and the last time these two teams played in Jordan-Hare, it was ugly. There was a missed 5-yard field goal from Mizzou, a ball dropped in front of the end zone, lots of penalties, and lots of dysfunction. I think Mizzou definitely remembers that, and I also don't think Auburn is all that good either, and I think Mizzou actually pulls off a victory on the road this year. That will then get them to 6-1 going into their game against Vanderbilt. Honestly, this is a trap game in my opinion, as for some unknown and odd reason, Mizzou is always playing close with Vandy. Pretty much every year that game is by 1 score, but I also think Mizzou will continue to get lucky against them and will win this game close. That will then put them at 7-1. From there, they will then come back home and play against Texas A&M, and those Mizzou players definitely remember what happened last season. The last time A&M came to Mizzou back in 2021, it was also a blowout, and last year was humiliating, so I think Mizzou is going to come in here and win this game and continue their march to a potential college football playoff spot. After that, they will return home and play against Mississippi State, which in my opinion is probably the worst team in the SEC this year, and because of that, and the fact that it is at home, I think Mizzou also wins that one. Honestly, Mizzou is in a good spot to make the college football playoff at this point, but then they hit a roadblock. Last year, Oklahoma and Mizzou played in one of the weirdest games of the 2024 college football season that went back and forth, and I also have a lot of faith in the Sooners this year, and add on the fact that they are at home, I think Oklahoma knocks off the Tigers in this one and gives them their second loss of the season. To finish out the year, they will go on the road to play against Arkansas, which is going to be interesting. By that time, Arkansas will either be really good or Sam Pittman will be fired. He's on the hot seat, and they're hoping that Talon Green takes the next step this year for them. It really depends, but I think there's a better chance that Arkansas is bad compared to really good. But still, I think the Tigers go on the road and beat Arkansas, as they've been pretty good against them in recent memory, and that will put them at 10-2. Honestly, Mizzou has a very favorable schedule, as they ended up missing Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Georgia, and LSU. So in my opinion, there's no reason why Mizzou should not win over 10 games this year. Obviously, the biggest matchups of the season will be Kansas, South Carolina, Alabama, A&M, and Oklahoma, and they get 4 of these 5 games at home. Still though, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas are tricky road games, and maybe this doesn't mesh. Maybe the new quarterback is terrible, maybe no one can catch passes, and things fall apart for Mizzou, and luck doesn't go their way. I personally don't think that's going to happen, but my official prediction is the Tigers go 10-2, with their 2 losses coming against South Carolina and Oklahoma, and if I were to flip one thing, I would say maybe they lose to Bama and beat South Carolina. But what do you guys think? If you're a Mizzou fan, what did I get right and wrong? How do you think the Tigers will do in 2025, and which team should I preview next? Be sure to let me know down below, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.